Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Friday. The weekend is very nearly here. Premier League football is back. It is a very, very nice Friday. I hope you're doing well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Mikel Arteta has just had his press conference. Well, just a little bit earlier, has just had his press conference. I sort of put upon here, round up all the big things that he had to say ahead of that game against Fulham yesterday in the Premier League. So we've got injury updates on Kai Havertz, on Ben White, on Pierre Hincapie, on Noddy Madueke, loads of injury updates from Mikel Arteta. So we'll get to the bottom of them. He's also been speaking about Victor Gyokeres and got a bit more in depth on Pierre Hincapie as he returns to the squad for the first time since that little cameo he had in the Champions League against Athletic Club way back when. Got a few questions and comments from you guys to get stuck into as well. So let's get right into it, shall we? And we'll start with the latest injury news. We'll start on Zubimendi. Obviously, the Sky Sports cameras were down at the training ground yesterday. They captured about sort of 20, 25 minutes worth of footage, and they noticed Zubimendi wasn't part of the training session. He was standing on the touchline with Andrea Berta watching on. Ben White wasn't there at all. And so Mikel was asked about that at the start of the press conference. On Zubimendi, he said all the players came from different countries and playing different amounts of minutes. We believed it was the right thing to do. He played 2 games again for Spain. His load has already been really high recently. And so we just thought he needed an extra day of recovery, basically. He was then asked, so is he available for the weekend? And he said yes. So Zubimendi is fine. They were just managing his load yesterday. That's why I wasn't take part in that training session, but should be available. He was then asked if it was the same for Ben, and he said yes, very similar. We are monitoring all of the players. We've given them a specific menu to each of them to make sure they are in the best condition. So it sounds like Ben White also should be fit for tomorrow. And it was just a case of managing his load at the moment, which when it comes to Ben White seems like the most sensible option, as Arsenal tried desperately to get him to peak fitness, which I think we can all agree would be huge, huge boost to Arsenal, to Arteta, to Jurriën Timber as well. So that's on Zubimendi and on Ben White. So pretty good news on them. On Martin Odegaard, obviously we know he's not going to be playing tomorrow. This was Mikel's first chance to speak about Odegaard since the news came out. Sammy Motbell wrote the story that Odegaard was probably going to be out until after the next international break with that knee injury. Mikel said it will be weeks. No definite date yet for his return, but he is evolving well. He's very unlucky with what's happening with him and injuries so far this season, but I think he will be back in a few weeks. It could be after the international break, but we will have to see how he progresses, how he manages the next step in his rehab. It's too early to say. So that's what he said about the captain, Martin Odegaard. He spoke about him a little bit more during the press conference as well. He was asked, how he's doing sort of mentally. He said, look, he's fine. The thing with Martin Odegaard, which is really, really good, Mikel was saying, was that he does everything he can to prevent injuries. He works so hard at that, but these are just the type of injuries that you can't really work to prevent because they've been so freak in terms of the actual nature of how that happens. So he said he's not too worried about that because he knows he's doing all he can outside of matches to make sure he doesn't pick up these injuries. He's just very unlucky. So he says he's keeping his head up and he's in a good state and that he's still going to be very, very important during these next few weeks, even if he's not on the pitch. He spoke about his leadership skills and how he's still going to be around and still playing an important role for this squad, even though he is not going to be on the pitch. So that's what he's had to say about Zubimendi, about Ben White, and about Martin Odegaard. On Pierre Hincapie, he said he will train again today with us. If everything is right, he will be available for the weekend as well. He's a player who will help us a lot, bring us something different to the team. We need to get him going, get him up to speed where he can compete at this level. What you are going to see is aggression, determination, a player who goes full gas into every single action, very clean on the ball, someone who really wants to penetrate. He will bring a different character and different emotion to the team. James Benge also asked if he'd sort of got recommendation and advice from Xavi Alonso, as Xavi was obviously Hincapie's coach at Bayer Leverkusen. And Mikel said, yes, absolutely. It'd be stupid to have a friend as good as Xavi and not use him when it comes to sort of scouting out these players and speaking to them about how potentially they will fit into this. I'm really excited about Hincapie. We just haven't seen him at all yet, which is a shame, because I do think when you look at his attributes and when you speak to people who've seen plenty of him over in Germany, he does feel like something a little bit different to everything else Arsenal have got potentially down that left-hand side. I mean, he can play at centre-back as well, of course. But I'm very excited to see what he's going to bring, that aggressiveness, that emotion that Mikel talks about there as well. It seems to be very, very front and centre of everything that Hincapie does. And so I think I have a feeling he's going to become a fan favourite. He's got a battle on his hands to get himself decent amount of minutes, because he's got Ricardo Calafiori in front of him. He's playing fantastically well. Miles Lewis-Skelly's obviously already there as well. So it's not going to be easy for Hincapie, but when he does play, I feel like we're going to see a player who we're all going to really, really enjoy. But as Mikel said, Arsenal have got to get him going now. They've got to get him up to speed where he can compete at this level and knows how to play in the Premier League. So still some way off for that. But yeah, looking forward to seeing Pierre Hincapie. In terms of Kai Havertz, we spoke about Kai Havertz in yesterday's show about when he returns, just how important I think his return is going to be on so many levels for so many different reasons, in terms of having a good player back first of all, but in terms of how that's going to help Victor Gyokeres and lessen the load and the burden on Victor Gyokeres, and mean Victor Gyokeres is hopefully going to be sharper because he's not going to have to play all the time. There's just loads of reasons why I think Havertz is going to be, his return is going to be so important. When Mikel was asked about it and how sort of close he is, he said, very difficult to say. There is still a lot to do in his rehab. He's really pushing. We know that Kai, and that's why we love him so much, and we are doing really good work for him. He wants to break every timeline, I am sure, but as well, we have to protect him and make sure when he comes back, it's for the long term. So he didn't really give anything away. We've never had a proper time frame on Kai and his return. The kind of expectation was about 8 to 10 weeks. It's been 7 weeks now. So whether we see him in this next little period of game before the next international break, we'll have to wait and see. If we have to wait a little bit longer, it'll be a shame. But fortunately, Arsenal are in a position where they can still cope. For now, touch wood, nothing happens to Victor Gyokeres in this time. But so that's what he had to say on Havertz. On Madueke, he said getting closer as well. He is going to be doing some running soon. Let's see how he reacts. So that sounds quite promising on Madueke. It seems like he's going to be back on the pitch, on the grass fairly soon. So maybe we'll get to see Madueke before the next international break. I mean, it's only 3 weeks, which I can't believe. Just come back from this one. Within 3 weeks, we're going back into another one, which is so frustrating. But Arsenal got a lot of games. I think it's 7 games in 21, 22 days, something like that Arsenal have got before the next international break. And it'd be very handy to get some of these injured players back. So that's all of the team news that Mikel's gone through on Zubimendi, on Ben White, on Odegaard, on Havertz, on Madueke, on Hincapie. And yeah, mixed fortunes for some of those players, mixed news from Mikel Arteta, some good, some maybe not quite so good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Hincapie. Anyway, very good news in terms of Zubimendi and on Ben White. Whether they both start, whether they both feature, who knows? I mean, I doubt Ben White will, but you imagine Zubimendi, Mikel will be hoping he can start the weekend. But again, even if he doesn't, got lots and lots of options in there. Elsewhere in the press conference, some interesting stuff. He spoke about Victor Gyokeres, gave a couple of interesting answers on Victor Gyokeres. He was asked about the fact he hasn't scored for a while now and whether he's needed to kind of pick him up a little bit after he's come back from Sweden, where he failed to score in another couple of games. Mikel was like, no, not really. So, and again, he sort of reiterated, says he brings so much to the team. And I told him in the first meeting that I had with him, the 9 that I want is the 9 who, if he doesn't score for 6 to 8 games, he can handle that. If not, you have to go somewhere else. And he also said other stuff about Victor Gyokeres in terms of, again, how important he has been for the team in this period and how happy he is with his performances. It does feel like a big period, this, for Victor Gyokeres coming up, these period of games, as much as we're, I think he's playing well. And I thought we saw signs leading up to the international break of Victor Gyokeres looking a much more well-rounded player in this Arsenal team, even if the goals weren't there. But at the end of the day, he is here to score goals. That's why we signed him. That's why we wanted a proper out-and-out striker to get us some goals. And it feels like this is an important period for him. I think he's been really unlucky. I think he could easily be sitting on 5, 6, 7 goals this season. He's not, and he'll be disappointed with that. But I'd really feel like he's got an important period of games coming up now in this period for the next international break. He needs to get himself on the score sheet, needs to just get that, I don't know, noise that seems to be growing around him. And I know people point to the penalty, and Bukayo Saka, could he have given him that penalty and stopped that noise? I don't really think it would have stopped it that much, to be honest. It'd just be nice to see him score in open play, just shut everyone up, see that celebration again, and then all will be right in the world. Still in my FPL team, and I'm keeping him in this week. So yeah, it'd be nice to get a couple of goals and get some points. So that's what he had to say on Victor Gyokeres. You can find the full transcript of the press conference. Well, I'm sure it'll be up at some point on Arsenal.com. Tom Canton on Football London, of course, puts it out as well if you want to go and read everything that Mikel had to say at London Colney this afternoon. But those were the sort of the main headlines, the important one, team news-wise, of course. And he spoke about Fulham and how well coached they are and how they're a difficult team. And in fact, it's another bogey ground. He said the recent experience playing against Newcastle, winning there, beating West Ham, who'd won the last 2 games at the Emirates, could help with Arsenal when it comes to getting over if there's any sort of mental block about playing at Craven Cottage, which I don't think there will be. But if there are, Mikel did say that we've had some good recent experiences which prove that we can do it on these grounds. Right, going to move on to a couple of questions and comments from you guys now. First from Dave from Ottawa. Says, great stuff, Charles. Not specific to Fulham, but I think the midfield 3 of Rice in the 6 with Marino and Eze ahead would be super interesting. For the next match, Zubimendi in the 6 with Nwaneri and Rice, or Nwaneri and Marino. It's wonderful to be able to think of all these different combinations, given our squad depth. Would love to know your thoughts. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Look, we'll have to wait and see on Zubimendi. Obviously, Arsenal are a bit fearful of how many minutes he's played. We saw that before the international break against West Ham. He was on the bench, but unfortunately had to come on early because Martin Odegaard got injured. But he was on the bench for that game. So that was a clear sign that they were a little bit worried about the minutes he was playing. He still had to play a lot of minutes in that game. Then he went away with Spain. He's played 2 games for them. So clearly they're a little bit worried about him, which is why he was on the touchline yesterday. And Arsenal do have these options that if you don't want to play Zubimendi, you can play Rice in the 6. You can even play Christian Norgard, although it's clear that Rice is ahead of Norgard in the pecking order for the 6 if Zubimendi's not going to play. We've seen that already so far this season. So you can play Rice, and then you can play that midfield ahead of him of Marino and a Eze, and it could work. We'll wait and see, but the options are available to Mikel Arteta, no doubt about that. And the different combinations you talk about, Art de Roche asked Mikel in the press conference today actually about the fact we've seen Mikel try out a few different combinations before the last international break. We saw at times, Saka playing on the left, Martinelli playing on the right. We saw different combinations forming in certain games. And Mikel again pointed to the strength of the squad and the fact he now has the ability to do that. So, I love the fact we've got these different combinations. I still think Hincapie coming back or coming into the side, we could see more combinations forming there with Hincapie maybe playing more when Eze plays, and then Calafiori and Martinelli maybe being more the combination on the left-hand side. So there's so many options available to Mikel now, and that has to be a good thing. A couple here on sort of Gyokeres and Havertz after what I was speaking about yesterday, and how, in my view, I think Havertz's return is going to really help Victor Gyokeres and just lessen the burden on him a little bit. Goon72 says, I'm 100% sure that Gyokeres wouldn't have had such a baptism of fire at Arsenal had Havertz been fit, and he wouldn't have had to play every single game like he has either. Gyokeres definitely needs a rest. He didn't get a chance to get properly match fit, and he's had nobody to fill in for him. So when Havertz comes back, he'll probably play more minutes than Gyokeres. I'm really looking forward to seeing Havertz back in the first team. He's such a special player, and he gives us something that Gyokeres just doesn't yet. Mito says, I like Havertz, but the way so many go on, it's classic because becomes a better player when they are out. People forget all the times he's missed great chances. He's a good forward second striker, but I do find this sort of bashing of Gyokeres odd. Yet he's not as smooth on the eye, but I think he's exactly what he's needed. I don't think anyone is bashing Gyokeres. I certainly wasn't bashing Gyokeres yesterday. I genuinely think if you ask Victor Gyokeres, will you be happy that Havertz is back? I think he'll say yes. I think you need to be able to rest from time to time and have some minutes and not have to be playing all the time. And unfortunately, he's had to do that, thrown straight in because of the injury to Havertz. So me saying it's good that Havertz is coming back or will be back soon, it's not bashing Victor Gyokeres. by no means am I bashing Victor Gyokeres. I think Gyokeres has had a good start to life at Arsenal. Could be better, but had a good start to life at Arsenal. So I'm not bashing him at all, but I do genuinely think that Havertz's return is going to be very, very big and hugely important to Arsenal, to Mikel Arteta, to the squad. John's got in touch with his lineup for Fulham. He says, bearing in mind we've got Atletico in 3 days and players have been away on international duty, rest in Rice and try and Eze and Marino instead. Gabriel Martinelli on the bench due to jet lag. So your 11 is Raya, Timber, Saliba, Hincapie straight in at centre-back for Hincapie. I don't see that happening, John. Do not see that happening. But you've got Raya, Timber, Saliba, Hincapie, Calafiori, Zubimendi, Marino, and Eze, and then Saka, Gyokeres, and Trossard. Interesting one. Yeah, I cannot see the Hincapie thing. Other than that, I mean, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility to me. I do feel if anyone's going to be rested out the midfield trio, it'll probably be Zubimendi more than Rice, because I think we're seeing some evidence, as I've already spoken about, in terms of what we saw yesterday at the training session, that Mikel and Arsenal are a little bit worried about the minutes that Zubimendi has played so far this season. So I think Rice is probably the more likely to start this game if one of them is going to drop out for this one. But thank you very much for your comment. We've got one from Mr. Allen now. He says, I've said to many people that Marino looks like the new David Platt. Very, very similar attributes. Long strides, great leap, great header, brilliant around the box with passing and timing and runs into the box, and centre forward level finishing with their feet. Good football intelligence. That's an interesting comparison. David Platt, how good. He was unbelievable in the air. David Platt, not as big as Marino either, but the spring and the timing of his leaps, David Platt was absolutely unreal. Unfortunately, not so much when he was at Arsenal. It didn't really happen for him, but he did score that wonderful header against Manchester United. It's still one of my favourite headers of all time. It didn't quite happen from at Arsenal, but wow, when he was at Villa and when he went to Italy, he was just unbelievable for England as well. It could just pop up. It's a really interesting comparison, but you know, it's a good comparison as well. That, as I said, sort of stature-wise, they may be a little bit different, but the attributes that they have in and around the penalty area and the way they find space and, like you say, their leap and the way they attack the ball, very, very similar. So, yeah, good comparison there. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Allen. We got one from Sam now, who says, hi, Charles. My biggest disappointment from last summer was our lack of activity in sending players out on loan. It's great to see Koscielny thriving at Bolton with 8 goal contributions in 13 games while on loan from Brighton, but it's frustrating we couldn't provide him with the development pathway that might have convinced him to stay rather than lose him on a free. Why do you think we're so inactive in the loan market? Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed in the summer. I mean, I do think that Arsenal have just got to... I don't think the batch of 21s that they've got at the moment is fantastic. And I also think that they're very, very young, which makes them quite hard to send out on loan. There was definitely players that needed to go out, players like Gyokeres who eventually did. But I don't look at the batch of the sort of the older players in the 21s group who are really, really kind of, you'd feel at the age where they should be in senior football. I'm not sure they're the greatest, strongest batch of players that Arsenal have ever produced at that sort of age. You know, there's could have been actually, like Charles Sago Jr., I think should have gone out on loan. The idea was he was either going to go out on loan or go on a permanent basis, and nothing happened, and that's disappointing. And I do wonder, because Andrea Berta is so focused on first team, that is his job jurisdiction. I always come up with words that just absolutely trip me up, and I can't go anywhere else. But that is his job, and it is mainly focused on the first team pitches, whereas Edu was sort of oversee the academy, first team, women's game, everything like that. It's not so much that with Andrea Berta. So I don't know if this was like the first summer, if that sort of got in the way and stuff. On Koscielny, like Arsenal, if he'd have stayed, I'm sure Arsenal would have got a decent loan for Koscielny because he's a very talented young player. They wanted to keep him. The reason that he went is because he just didn't see the pathway, and look, he's playing in the same position as Bukayo Saka, so that's understandable. But you know, they managed to keep the others. But when you've got 3 really talented players who you're trying to keep at the same sort of time coming through the academy at a club as good as Arsenal, where they know their pathway is not very good, not great because of the quality of players that go in front of them, the fact they managed to keep 2 and only lose 1, to be fair, wasn't actually that bad in my view. And especially the fact that the one they did lose was the guy who was playing in coming through in Bukayo Saka's position. But it's good to see him doing well. Koscielny obviously had a really sort of bad start at Brighton, picked up a bad injury. But now he seems to be doing pretty well at Bolton and is scoring some good goals. Saw him score an absolute banger the other day, I think against Leyton Orient. I think it was absolutely beautiful goal. But yeah, I do think the loan market, especially for younger players, is something that Arsenal need to improve on. There's no doubt about that. I think there needs to be more of a focus on it, especially as the current group who are coming through now get to the age where they could go out to senior football and not kind of be swallowed up by the physicality of it all. So thank you very much, Sam, for the question. And that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Just for Inside Arsenal Patreon members, we will be recording the Inside Arsenal FPL show a little bit later on today. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That'll be coming in the afternoon, just rounding up what happened before the international break, how the league table is shaping up, what you could be doing, possible captain picks, all stuff like that for this weekend. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That is exclusive to Inside Arsenal Patreon members. You want to sign up and become a Patreon member, get access to shows like that and the Arsenal Press Pass show that went out yesterday with myself, Sam Dean and Simon Collins, then you can do that. You find the link in the video description or podcast description below. Just copy and paste that into your browser. Go straight to patreon.com and sign up, support the channel and become a member. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the morning for the preview show, predicted 11s, everything like that. Take it easy. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.